on the left, two fingers up on the right, feet at a 45-degree. And we'll repeat after Brother Omari.
Islam.
Islam.
Allah.
Allah.
Father of the universe.
Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah protector.
My God.
God.
And my salvation.
By
night.
night.
And by day. Through his holy prophet. Noble Drew Ali. Amen. Islam.
First I rise, I give praise to Allah, I give honors to the illustrious prophet, I give honors to his forerunner, Marcus Garvey. I give honors to each and every one of you. I give honors to all that pertain to Islam. Thank you. Now let me get my pages on. Right? Okay, I have my pages a little mixed up for a minute. One more thing, y'all. I gotta get my glasses. I don't see as well as I used to. You can see right quick. Got it. Salvation, Allah, unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the divine constitution and bylaws, set forth by our illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah, for our earthly salvations. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make laws and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is Assistant Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he or she lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly, according to the Circle 7, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because it was on a Friday the first man was formed into flesh. It was on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended to his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is a holy day for Muslims all over the world. Act 3, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and no members to put in danger or falsely accuse his falsely accuse his brother or sister on any occasion that may harm his brother or sister. Why? Because Allah is what? Love. Act 4, all members must preserve these holy and divine laws. And all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of this government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization, the Moorish Science Temple of America, is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws of the Constitution of the said government, but to what? Obey hereby. Act 6, the most important of all of them, is with us, all members must proclaim their nationality and what? We are teaching our people their nationality and what? Their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of the said government and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, Ethiopians, or Ethiopians, because these names were what? Given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men and women now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is why the great God of the universe ordained the prophet Noble Drew Ali to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Morris Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband, take care of your children, and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure in love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble U.S.A. through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Islam. Now, I just have maybe 4 excerpts to drop on you before I step aside, and I'm going to do it expeditiously. This is just for thought. It's not for hand raising. It's just for thought. The hand raising will be done thereafter. The citizens, the divine warning by the prophet for the nations. I won't read this whole thing, just a couple of excerpts. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, still Act 6, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables. And I will move along. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Therefore, peace by the efforts of all parties alludes to a state of calmness, harmoniousness, and tranquility. The treaties are compacts that represent the honor of the parties to them, to uphold and to take such measures as are necessary to keep the peace. Because the peace of society depended on what? Thank you. I was waiting for you all to chime back. Now, this comes to my closing. The social duties of citizens. The social and civic duties of the citizens of all nations, all parties in the treaty have and possess a duty and a responsibility to be competent, clear, and specific as to the truth and actuality of the identifications of the parties in agreement. With us, what? All members must proclaim their nationality. The natural people must be cognizant as to who is whom. Just know who you are, and are held to be diligent in their responsibilities to their civic and social duties. The official leaders and administrators of education or instruction are duly bound by virtue of their title, the positions of public trust, to assure that means those who are voted for must carry out these duties, to assure that such related civic studies are orally dispensed among the citizenry, and such erudite competence is needed and necessary for the primal support and demonstrable application. The citizens of the nation should be well prepared to take their places among the affairs of men. Islam. So with that, I'm going to step aside. Thank you. And I'm going to call up at this time Brother Omari. He's going to get into the question and answer period. Islam.
Islam, family. First I rise, giving praises to the Almighty Architect of the universe, Father God Allah. Give honors to His Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Give honors to Temple Number 10. I'm going to give honors to Grand Sheik of the Temple Number 10 and the Sheikhs of Temple Number 10. I'm going to give honors to all Moors in attendance today and all honors to Moors online. Islam. We're going to start with the Quran, questions for Moors children, because we are all children in the eyes of Allah. This is also the question and answer period, so if there's any questions or any answers anyone wants to understand or overstand anything or just build within their 5 senses, please feel free to do so just by raising your hand. Islam. 1, who made you? 2, who is Allah? 3, can we see Him? 4, where's the nearest place we can meet Him? 5, who is Noble Jew Ali? 6, what is a prophet?
Prophet is the thought of Allah manifested in flesh.
7, what is the duty of a prophet?
To save the nation from the wrath of Allah.
8, who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Noble Ali.
9, what year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
10, where?
Newark, New Jersey.
11, where was Noble Jew Ali born?
The state of North Carolina, 1886.
12, what is his nationality?
Moorish American.
13, what is your nationality?
Moorish American.
14, why are we Moorish Americans?
Because they're the descendants of Iraq and born in America.
15, for what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
For the upliftment of fallen humanity.
16, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish American?
By teaching them to be themselves.
17, what is our religion?
Islam.
18, is that a new or is that an old time religion?
Old time religion.
19, what kind of flag is the Moorish?
The red flag with 5 pointed green stars.
20, what do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
21, how old is our flag?
It is 50,000 years old.
22, which is our holy day?
Friday.
23, why?
Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh.
It was on Friday that man departed from
flesh.
Islam. 24, who was Jesus?
He is the prophet of Allah.
25, where was he born?
In Bethlehem of Judah, in the house of David.
26, who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
27, will you give and breathe the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz, Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph and Mary.
28, why did Allah send Jesus to this earth?
To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression
of the Palestinian nations of Europe, who were governing a portion of Palestine at that time.
29, how long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
30, what was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was the Moabites.
39, what is the modern name for Moabites?
Moroccans.
32, where's the Moroccan Empire?
Northwest of Mexico.
What is another name for Northwest of Mexico?
Africa.
34, where's the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
Sultan.
35, where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
From the east.
36, what does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
37, did the angel give to a child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes,
but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
38, what is an angel?
An angel is God of Allah manifested in the human flesh.
39, what are angels used for?
to carry messages to the four corners of the world to all nations.
40, what is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah who was sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
41. What is the everlasting gospel?
It is the saving power that comes from Allah through his prophet.
42. What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth's land, which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee.
Islam. 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12.
44. Where did he teach?
India, Africa, and Europe.
45. How long has he taught? Or how long did he teach?
18 years.
46. What did Jesus say that would make you free?
Truth.
47. What is truth?
Truth is ought.
48. What is ought?
Ought is Allah.
49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
50. What other name do we give truth?
Holy breath.
51. What have you to say about holy breath?
All we can say is that it's great, it's good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen.
52. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden,
53. Where's the Garden of Eden?
in the land of Canaan, in the city of Mecca.
54. What is the modern name of the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
55. What is the name of the first physical man?
This name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of AC, MST, of A.
56. What are the words of AC of the MST of A?
Adaptation, Lord, Science, America, Third Heaven.
57. Who were Adam and Eve?
They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
58. Where did they go?
They went to Asia.
59. What is the modern name given to the children?
Asiatics.
60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away?
Angels.
61. What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
62. What is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
63. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
Yes.
We all have the same father and mother.
64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
66. How many selves are there?
2.
67. Name them.
High self and lower self.
68. What people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
69. What people represent the lower self?
Those who are cast out of the
Holy city and those who accept their teachings.
So was those the descendants of Adam and Eve? Question to the floor. Were those the descendants of Adam and Eve?
The angels are the
What people represent the lower self? Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings. 57 says, who were Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
Yes, they were.
58. Where did they go? They went into Asia. What is the modern name given to those children? Asiatics. Now, who is guarding the holy city away of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away? Angels.
angels.
What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
Islam.
You ask, are they still, are still the children of Adam and Eve?
Yes.
Absolutely. They fell, but yes, they're still the children of Adam and Eve.
Indeed.
They still have the traits of Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast in them. This is why they were cast out of the holy city.
And we know
they accepted the false doctrines or the false dogma, but they're still the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Islam. And we know that to be true by 63. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
Yeah.
Yes. We all have the same father and mother. Then it says, give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve. Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. And 65 says, what is the devil sometimes called? The lower self. So it's telling you that there are 2 selves within man. Islam?
Islam.
70. What is the higher self?
The highest self is the mother of virtue, the harmonies of life, that breeds justice, mercy, love, and right.
71. Can the higher self pass away?
No,
72. Why?
because it is Allah and man.
73. What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms.
74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
76. Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
77. When was his time declared out?
We will give Jesus protocol.
78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did he have reference to?
Every reference to the end of the city.
80. Did Jesus say he returned to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the person who into Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad, the conqueror.
82. Was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was bound in our heart.
83. When was the head of Satan taken off?
1453.
84. By whom? 85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian.
86. Negro.
Because it contained black water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Black, according to science, means death.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Color means anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No,
91. Why?
because a man is made in the image and likeness of God allowed.
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity. Purity means God. God means ruler of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is the shadow of our lower selves and will pass away.
96. Who made the devil?
Elohim.
97. Who was Elohim?
Elohim is the seven created spirits that be everything the world is and evermore to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
The seven eyes of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are there in a year?
7 days.
Islam.
Islam.
Gratitude more for the participation. That was good. I want to start off with the subject matter of the day, which would be the circle 7. And before, some of you may know it as the Holy Quran, but I'm just going to reference the circle 7 because before I even open the Quran, I just want to get into the cover on the symbol and deal with the sciences on what does that even mean. Before I get into it, does anyone like to expound their 5 senses on what they think it means or what they know that it means? From the 7 to the circle, anything? Islam, Brother Flying Go?
First, I rise and I give all praises to Allah, Father of the universe. Honors to Noble Drew Ali. Honors to Marcus Messiah Garvey. Honors to the Grand Sheik. Honors to Sheik Amika. Honors to you, Brother Amari. Honors to Sheik Amari. Honors to everybody here. Honors to everything pertaining to Islam.
Islam. Honest to you.
From my understanding, the circle is it has 4 cardinal points, indicating north, south, east, west, and it has another point in the middle, which is the 7, the angle. That's another angle that's in the middle, and elements, air, water, fire, earth, and spirit, which is the fifth symbol, and it also represents to me perfect man.
Represents perfected man.
Perfected man. Pardon, sorry.
Islam. That would be the 7. Gratitude. Anyone else? Islam, Sheikh Shatik.
No, I'm going to defer to Brother Mark,
Okay, Islam.
and I'll speak after.
Islam.
Islam, arise and give praise to Allah, honors to Marcus Garvey, honors to Grand Sheik. Sheik is our honorable members and guests, and everything pertaining to Islam.
Islam.
That Circle 7, my impression is you have your 4 cardinal points, which are the spaces, which is your 4 seasons. You have your 7, which represents your 2 eyes, your 2 nostrils, your 1 mouth, and your 2 ears, which give you that. Also included with that is your intuitions and your I lost my train of thought at that moment, but the divine element, that's what I get from that.
Sheikh Shatik.
Now, yes, I was going to come off of both flanks, right? Yes, the circle 7, you have the brackets in between, means you're still perfecting. 7 days of the week, 7 days of the year, and according to science, how many days? 7 days. Circle 7. You know what I'm talking about? The 7 is the 2 eyes, nostrils. That's 4. That's 6. Mouth is 2, 4, 6. 7 is the tongue. So now, if you want to go to the 8th house, it's the ones you keep closed. That is the overall demonstration I learned about the circle 7. We're the circle 7. So until you are a work in progress, this is why you have the openings in the brackets.
All those demonstrations is beautiful. Then you also have, it's like knowledge is infinite. So just as you thought we met, it just keeps going. And I say that to say that with the Circle 7, just with the cover alone, there's so much to build within this symbol of what it means to man, what it means to life, the universe. Just like the 2 brothers said, or all 3 brothers, cardinal points, north, south, east, west. And the breaks, like I said, within the circle is leaving room for man to grow. It would be sort of like the pyramid of the seal, right? The top, the space between the head and the rest of the body, leaving room for improvement. Because why are we even here in the first place? Because we debased ourselves from Allah. So our whole journey means man is here to gain experience. So through our experiences, we want to ascend back to Father God Allah, which is why it can't be a complete circle, because if it was a complete circle, we wouldn't need to be in the first place. Now, also you have your cardinal points, like I said, and also you have it in reference to the 4 prophets, Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, and Jesus. That also represents the 4. Now, I'm going to tie that into Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7. And love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So you must open the meeting according to this principle, which is perfect man. When we get up and we rise, this is the 7. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Also seraphim and cherubim, right? But then also can be our 5 senses on man level, intuition and inception. This is what man is all about. Also going to this is, like I said, we could keep building. Anyone, any questions so far? Any add on the bills? No? You let me go. All right. And this is also getting into what they call perfected man. It's a 7, because now we read the Quran, chapter 1 says, what was the last fulfillment was man? Then man fell into his final God. That was so now the Lord, the man would say, Lord, man, no, God ordained man to be Lord of all planes. Those are the 7 planes. Also, to be is the 7 part of the 7 eyes of Allah. That's in chapter 1. And we can even go into it just to give some clarity. The bodies and souls of men are finite things, and yet they will change. Yet from the finite point of view, the time will come where there will be no more. But man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to man, to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul. Gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of flesh of the flesh that he might function on the plane of things that are made manifest? Hear now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplasm and earth and plant and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, water, earth, and air, like Flying Go reference. Hear now, O everything that is or was and evermore to be. Was that the everlasting gospel of Allah?
Absolutely.
For wisdom speaks from the highest plane of spirit life. Man is a thought of Allah, all things of Allah are infinite. Islam? And I just want to confirm all this in the Quran is beautiful because you can always tie the verbiage that the Prophet is given to us. You can verify it. So I want to just jump into chapter 10, the unity of Allah and man. I'm going to go straight to ayat 24. And this is Allah. You are, each one, a priest just for yourself, and sacrifice of blood Allah does not want. And while we're here to gain, is here to gain experience, but also to ascend back to his Father God Allah. Again, another reference, chapter 13, life and works of Jesus in Egypt among the Gentiles. Ayah 16. Again, the master spoke. He said, the greatest heights are gained by those who reach the greatest depths, and you shall reach the greatest depths. Just elaboration. So in life, as we're traveling to gain experience, the greatest heights are gained by those who reach the greatest depths. You ever see or hear a lot of stories about people who were broke and homeless for some time, some periods of times, and it's kind of like the stories when who is it, John in the wilderness, and he came out with a different understanding of life. So a man can be so-called poor, and throughout his mind's building to reach those depths, he's going to reach those heights. That's polarity, right? As above, so below. So the deeper he went down is really the higher he was going up when he figured out how to turn the poles. Which also explains the reason of man and why we toil. That's all. It's all one and the same. And I just want to, Islam.
One does not know what life is unless one have struggled.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way you can realize the true value of what you have and what you don't have, and how much to appreciate what you have is by going through trials and tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have those, a soldier didn't have a foe, he wouldn't know his strength. So that ties into your question. You won't know how to reach your highest heights unless you reach your lowest lows.
Mm-hmm.
You must learn from the bottom up,
Islam.
from the top down.
Islam. Islam. I like that. You just said. I just thought of something else with that. It's hold on. Let me. I kind of lost my train of thought. I'll wait till they come back about that. And again, on the cover, and how we all can confirm this to be true, by the guiding of his Father, God Allah, the great God of the universe, right? Who at times do we refer as being the great God?
Allah.
The great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father, God Allah. So with this symbol alone is telling you what our purpose is and what we're here to do.
Absolutely.
And also on the path of wisdom, man still toils after folly. And I say that to say, even on this path of then more science, we're still going to have toil. We're still going to have opposition. But Drew Ali prepared us with the tools on how to defeat it. Islam? Any other questions? Any bills you want to add on? Brother Flying go?
Islam. I was gonna say
It's Islam.
that inside the circle 7, to me it's like you purifying your soul. You know, like with their place to meet Allah in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that circle 7 is where Allah is at. To me, that symbolizes that to me as well.
Islam. But only a still voice can hear. And how you would get that still voice is through this. All right? Because everyone has the ability to hear Allah, but everyone does not. Islam. That pretty concludes my demonstration. Thank you, Mose. Next, I'm gonna bring up the Grand Sheikh of the Temple, Nature El Bay.
Islam, Muslim.
Islam.
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 I always rise in the name of Allah, giving perfect praise to the Almighty, giving honors to our Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the savior of humanity, giving honors to all active, healthy Moors in America and Moors abroad. Islam.
Islam.
So keeping up with the build, we are open our meetings according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam. That extends from a previous build that we had with several different members. And the subject matter of our meetings is what I want to highlight. Brother Omari did a perfect job on demonstrating what the Circle 7 stands for. But what I want to highlight is the term meeting. We're to open our meetings up according to the Circle 7. What does that really mean? Because we look at Friday night, what is referred to as holy night or holy meeting, and we look at Sunday meeting and look at that as what we call Sunday meeting. Some even refer to it as Sunday school, which it is a school, but it's all semantics. I mean, not deliberately semantics and from a negative perspective, but just mean it's left up to your perception of what these terms actually mean. So a meeting or meeting place or a meeting of the minds can take place physically and it can take place metaphysically. And we always meet, regardless if we're in a physical building or institution referred to as a temple, because a temple is also up to your perception. Temple is not necessarily the physical institution where we meet. So as we fold or unfold, our God unfolds. So as we study and get a better interpretation of what these terms mean and what are meant by the terms, then our God should constantly unfold, and how we perceive ourselves would change as well. So the heart, according to the questionnaire, is the meeting place of man. That's where you meet your creator. That's the nearest place you meet your creator. Right? So we look at the one-on-ones and we take this from an elementary perspective and then we grow with it. And not just grow within terminology or studying, but also in applying that, learning how to meet Allah in the heart, knowing how to meet man in the heart. You know, so when you see the symbolism behind some of these gestures, I would say, like Moors always doing this, as I explained before, not really understanding what that means. And although you can symbolize what it represents, and other people might recognize that as a certain gesture, you're still held accountable to the mindset or the integrity of what that actually represents. So some organizations refer to that symbolism as fidelity. So where we now go back into your Quran, where does it mention fidelity in your Quran or your circle 7 as we talked about? Anyone know? It says a man's fidelity is his honor, or a man's honor is his fidelity. A man's honor is his fidelity. So what is honor? So we don't want to just, again, speculate. Let's look it up. We got the dictionaries. Anybody can go into the dictionary real quick on their phone and just give us the term honor. Because there's a legal or lawful ramification behind the word honor as well. We'll get to that next. Brother Omar.
Islam.
Mhm.
Honor, a noun, a good name or public esteem, reputation, a showing of usually merited respect, recognition, privilege, a person of superior standing, one whose worth brings respect and fame, the center point of upper half of an armored echelon, an evidence or symbol of distinction.
Islam. Anybody have anything different?
Islam.
Islam, Brother Flying, bro.
Here, honor. This is from the Funk and Wagnall's New College Standard Dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
Honor is a noun. It says consideration, due or paid as to worth, respectful regard. 2. Any outward token of such feeling, such as college distinctions. 3. A nice sense of what is right. 4. That to which respect is due, a cause of esteem.
Mm-hmm.
5. A title used in addressing judges, mayors, etc. 6. In whist, one of the 4 highest trump cards in bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Of 4 aces when there are no trumps. 7. In golf, the privilege of playing first from the tee. It says see synonyms under fame, justice, reference, and virtue. To do the honors, to act as host.
Islam. Thank you, Brother Shatik.
One who's held in the most highest of esteem.
Mm-hmm.
One whose integrity is intact. One who is recognized
Mm-hmm.
for being completely upstanding and upright.
Islam. Islam, Sister Jamila.
We have it as a verb as
Mm-hmm.
well. So, regard with great respect, as in they honor their parents and all they do.
Mm-hmm.
To fulfill an obligation or keep an agreement,
Mm-hmm.
make sure to honor the terms of the contract.
Islam. All of the above is correct. And I even like that last part you said, to honor the terms of a contract. Islam. And I'm going to get into that as well, because we know that law is contract. All law is contract. Contracts are law. All right. And again, we got to arrive at that understanding on what law really represents. And it represents agreement between either one or 2 or more parties. So what we're talking about, meaning on a divine scale, is being honorable within self as an individual. So the other definitions we gave is in lieu of that. But give you an example. They refer to magistrates as Your Honor, right? So listen to what Brother Shatik just said with his definition of it. So if you're referring to somebody as Your Honor, why are you calling that individual Your Honor? And not depreciating that individual. Maybe they are in honor. I'm just giving you something to look at on why they refer to a judge as Your Honor. So I'm going to go over to the Black's Law Dictionary and describe it. The office of honor. Used in a constitutional and statutory provisions, this term denotes a public office of considerable dignity and importance to which imparts the public trust or the interest confided in that individual. Sort of like what you were saying. Honorary, as applied to the public offices and other positions of responsibility or trust. This term means either that the office of title is bestowed upon the incumbent as a mark of honor or a compliment. I'm going to stop there. So it's dealing with Moorish Americans, being descendants of Moroccans born in America, being descendants of the ancient nobles, is also a title of nobility and an office of honor. So when we use the term noble, then we must represent the character and the dignity that goes along with that particular title is more of an office. So our particular status pertains more to an office of the public trust. So we are here, like we spoke about last week, we're here to become the guiders of the nation. This administration of government being what? More wisely prepared by more genius citizens, right? So we're here to learn how to hold office. We're here to learn the public's trust. Now, what is the public's trust? Back to the lessons again. Quote unquote, Drew Ali. They place their trust upon names and issues formed by their forefathers, right? So that takes us to the word trust. The word trust deals with the public affairs. It deals with the affairs of government. So I'm going to repeat. They place their trust, which means that they place their governmental affairs. I'm using the word and I'm interchanging them now. They place their trust upon names and issues formed by their forefathers. So believe it or not, this particular government, referred to as the United States Republic, is rooted in the trust of the Moroccan government.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Has always been.
That's right.
So we know that, but we must understand why we are really initiated into this school of thought, this organization known as the Moorish Science Temple of America, this nation known as the Moorish American Nation. Why are we in this to begin with? Is to take our place in what?
Amongst the affairs of men.
In the affairs of men. I.e., that's called the public trust. So if they said that they placed, Drew Ali said this, they placed their trust upon names first, and issues formed by their forefathers, which means that the government has to be rooted within the name and the issues of the forefathers.
Yes, sir.
Who are the forefathers of this government? That's the question. Islam. Jamil.
The Moors.
Islam.
Islam.
So that means that this government, the names of the Moroccans must be at the seat and head of this particular government. That means that the names are strongly influenced dealing with governmental affairs. However, you don't see the names in this government, right?
No.
However, that's the problem.
Mm.
That's why he said this administration of government being more wisely prepared, because it's premature. It has not yet been attained.
That's right.
So it's basic, we understand that, but I want to really make this clear on our position because, again, it's not about who's in it or who seems to be more knowledgeable.
That's right.
It's about everyone who come in this from day one has an obligation and a responsibility to take their place to be future leaders and guiders of this nation. This is not just to come in to receive a package or come in to get your personal affairs in order, but this is also to help other people get their affairs in order. So we got to look at it as, again, a public trust. Like you're being appointed or elected to take a seat in government. That's how serious we need to take our post. And if we're not there yet, that's what we need to be gearing ourselves up towards, being eligible to be in that position. Islam? Any comments, any questions before I move forward? Islam. So going back to the word meeting. Repeatedly throughout the literature, you'll hear, we must attend our meetings. We must attend our meetings. Although some of us still degrade that to a class. Some say I'm going to class. And as I explained before, there's a different meaning between the word class and the word meeting. Governments have meetings. Governments don't have classes.
Right.
So again, be careful what you say because you can depreciate what it is that you are doing, just within words, just in terminology, just through having a misunderstanding.
That's
But
right.
again, not just for ourselves, but when you speak about this pertaining to other affairs, it can take away, like people always throw the religious thing at you and say, oh, that's a religion you're dealing with, or, you know, and they respect your religion, but that's as far as it goes. But they'll never look at it from a political arena if you don't invoke that within the conversation, within teaching and within holding somebody else to what it is that you're even dealing with. So again, it comes from the membership generally who don't invoke the Moorish Science Temple to be viewed from a governmental perspective.
Islam.
The members allow it to be talked about and viewed as a as a religion because of their mindset that they don't accept it from themselves as a governmental institution. And even Drew himself said that this is no social organization.
No.
He said this is a government.
That's right.
But we are taking, not saying we like anybody in this particular form here,
Islam.
but just saying in general,
That's right.
we don't stand up and defend what Drew Ali actually established. So the conversation we had the other night is, he said, yes, I gave you what it takes to save a nation. Now you take it and go save yourself. Yes, he said that. But did we continue what he did?
Mm.
Because we didn't quite understand it. And going back to the mind state of the Moors in the 1930s, did not quite understand that. And those who did understand it manipulated it, as well as other entities and spirits that got involved in that. But the membership themselves, plural, even to today, almost 100 years later, is not really doing any better at that, still because of the misunderstanding of what it is that this movement is dedicated to.
That's right.
Like he said, So why do we reread the literature all the time? Is to re-invoke exactly where he left off. Islam.
Islam.
Islam, Mobite. It's good to see you. Islam. So keeping the spirit going right on, take a mental note, a meeting different from a class. Always refer to your meetings.
As meetings.
Don't depreciate them. Islam.
Mm.
So Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart. Islam. We also make human hearts our altar fires.
That's right.
Islam. So we spoke about that before and what that really means. You become the temple. You are the temple. So you can't allow anybody to depreciate the temple, like Drew said. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones who speak against your temple. So you can't allow dirt to interfere with the integrity of the temple. Because once you do that, then you depreciate yourself. Because you are the temple. The temple is made up of the individuals. So collectively, we represent the temple. No different from we use the word corporation. And some say, oh, I'm not dealing with the word corporation. And don't understand corporation just means body or bodies. Now, there are many different types of corporations. That's a different story. But just the word corporation is not a negative concept. Or organization, which means organs, different organs or multiple organs
Right.
working in unison represents or constitutes what is called an organization.
That's right.
So in Act 5, it says this organization of what? The Moorish Science Temple
America
is not to cause any confusion or overthrow the laws and constitution of the government, but to obey hereby.
Said government, yes.
So again, listen to what we're saying. Just like we say we are the government. Why do we say that? Because we are part and parcel to it. So if you're part and parcel to it, then that means you are it.
Absolutely.
The government is not an outside entity. The government is you. The government is made up of the individuals.
People. Right.
Back to what is stated in the preamble of
That's
the
right.
United States of America Constitution.
That's right.
The people form a government. So,
Islam.
Islam says.
Horizon of perfect peace. You'll learn to the friendship, separation, and shifts. Just a couple of comments. From the constitutional perspective, I believe somewhere it speaks of sovereignty as in the people. And so that's one point. And to the contrast, the negative speaking about the sovereign citizen movement has taken, made some negative shine, if you will, on the fact that the sovereignty is never to be taken apart as an individual thing. Sovereignty is in the people as a unit. And so just
Correct.
to your comment that additionally, speaking from, newness coming in the movement, the information was the temples are a reverse church. And so therefore, coming into a movement that has been on the record, if you will, since 1913, when the first temple came up, which was a civics, governmental, no civics, and so forth and so on. So from that period of time, so-called infiltrators in the temple, i.e., through the governmental persuasion, has not allowed the communication of civics within the temples, and so therefore it's somewhat in a religious, application to new people coming in. So that's why some people would say, "Oh, if you go to the temple, it's nothing but a reverse church." So just want to put that out there. So we miss the knowledge base. In fact, that is one of the reasons we had traveled, if you will, the distance, is because we heard that it is some lonely temple somewhere that they actually do blend it together like Noble Drawley had intended it. 1913 for the civics portion of it, but then it wasn't until 1928, 29, 28 that it became a body politic or became a religious corporation or a religious corporation. So,
Islam, and very well put. I would like to add on to that as well. The only thing that became quote unquote religious in that statement was the activity. He said, because the work of the Moorish Science Temple of America was largely religious, an affidavit to that effect was filed in Cook County, Illinois. So we as studious and statesmen have to be able to read in between the lines and decipher what is being said. He never said that the Moorish Science Temple was being changed to a religious organization.
No, never said that.
He said he filed it as a religious organization. That's a difference. But that does not change the activity and the work that was being done prior to the affidavit being filed. And when you go into it, you'll see that the activities never changed. So again, we allow people to spearhead things maybe from a wrongfully positioned because we lack the knowledge on what is the intent from the beginning. And this is why Drew Ali spoke in code again to tell us that the new Moors was going to come and fulfill his law. He didn't say fulfill his religion. So let me ask a question open to the floor. Everyone heard of the Knights of Templar, right?
Yeah.
I think I spoke about this last week. Is the Knights of Templar a religious organization?
No.
No. So a Templar is a member of a temple.
That's right.
So how come we allow members to classify, or people to classify members in the Moorish Science Temple as religious people, but we won't refer to Knights of Templar or anyone else, or even the Vatican, as a religious organization? See, that's our misunderstanding. But these are government institutions. And what you said earlier, body politics. So different countries, kingdoms, and nation states call government by different names. So we're accustomed to the word government, and that's all we know. But in other territories, they might refer to government by different names. Like England, for example, refers to their government as parliament.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm gonna rise and give praises to our God of the universe, honestly,
Mhm.
over the property which I live honest everyone here. Yes,
Islam.
I think it's sort of a misunderstanding and its interpretation when you say separation of church and state.
Mm-hmm.
And those terms have to be defined. Church needs to be defined, state needs to be defined and understood.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's our interpretation of them, which makes people believe that religious activity can have no social application,
Mhm.
political application,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Which is completely false,
Yes.
a misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's taken literal, the church, separation church and state. But if you look closely, there is really no segregation between the two.
Islam. And absolutely. And that goes back into even when the colonists came here, how they set up churches as regencies or institutions just to filter governmental affairs.
And then tell 501c3s that they can have no political activities.
Because they're controlling the jurisdiction and what goes on within those institutions. Thank you. Very well put. Yes, Islam, brother.
Brother North Star, somebody guide me in the preamble.
First arise, I give praise.
I rise to give
Praise
praise.
to Allah.
I rise to Allah.
Honor to his prophet.
Honor to his
And
prophet.
all that pertains to Islam.
And all that pertains to
Okay,
Islam.
now you can speak.
Islam, we give honor
Islam.
to you.
Thank you. So I want to understand. Noble Drew Ali filed as a religious organization, holding the treaty that says you can come over here as a corporation and do your thing. Given permission, he has this treaty, but he filed as a religious organization. Why file as a religious organization and not the true landlord? My question.
Islam.
Tenor of the times, I mean, maybe.
Well, I will explain it from a First Heaven perspective first. And then we can get into a higher understanding later. I'm gonna read a definition first before I get into your breakdown your question. But in the Black's Law Dictionary, the word temple. Just want to end this for a second. Black's Law Dictionary defines temple as two English inns of court, thus called because anciently the dwelling place of the Knights of Templars. On the suppression of the order, they were purchased by some professors of the common law and converted into the inns of court. So I'm gonna stop here. This goes back to, let me just turn, they say the English inns of court, but let me explain that as well. We know the jurisdiction of the colonizers was England. We already passed that. However, the temple was used as a court as well, or this is why we hear the term regency. Brother Todd uses the term regency a lot. Because what does regency represent? Same thing, court. All right. Going back to my standpoint argument with the consular court, where when we invoked Truth A1, which deals with the jurisdiction of consular court, you have to invoke it. You can do what you want, but what we did was invoke Truth A1, which is a United States Code of Law classification for interchange relationships between nations. We invoked it from a temple perspective because a temple is truly a court. So what is the consular court for the Moorish American nation? It's the temple. However, most Moors will disagree with you because it has not been used that way. But truthfully speaking, in law, that's what it is. Drew Ali established a grand body. He established a supreme grand body, a supreme council. So the term council also pertains to body politic, to deal with the affairs of the nation. So whenever there was a dispute, charges, or anything brought up, or anything dealing with domestic in-house issues or issues outside, or people, general citizens doing damage to a Moorish American, it was addressed through the Supreme Council and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. So from the 1928 perspective of the nation, the consular court was already established. This is not what the lesson about is today, but again, in order to defend these things, one must study Drew Ali's work to understand what he established and what should be administered now. However, these things have not been upkept, so therefore, by default, people establish different things because we need redresses of our grievances. However, we put the cart before the horse, and we do things prematurely and through ignorance of establishing things and don't understand where the power is vested. So let's go back to Brother North Star. Let's go back to that question. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali established the Moorish Temple of Science in 1925. And it was legally filed as a civic organization. And the reason or the mission statement behind why he filed it as a civic organization was, which was stated in the affidavit, to teach those things necessary to make our members what? Better citizens. So the term civic organization, that's not just a phrase, but it's actually a legal phrase. So a civic organization is an organization that's dedicated to teaching the fundamentals of citizenship. So the whole nature of the Moorish Science Temple, the whole organic concept of the nation or the temple was to deal with citizenship. It's a citizenship organization. So that's how it started. That's how he filed it. Now, to take advantage of other rights and immunity that is respected and classified, he filed it as a religious organization in, I believe, 1926, 1927. And large part of that was because of the heat that was coming on the organization behind it continuously being looked at or viewed as a civic organization. So this is where we have to communicate with this on an outside of the realm of this meeting here on what was those things specifically. So he filed it not only for the observances of the religious organizations, but it also brought protection to the organization under what they refer to as the First Amendment. So it gave the membership and the nation a certain protection at law that it couldn't be classified a certain way where certain other entities could not move on it the way that they preferred to. However, it didn't change, again, the activity of it far as what they taught or what the function was dedicated to. And largely dealing with COINTELPRO that had interest in some of the temples, they pushed the idea of the religious aspect and keeping things as a place of worship, and that was it. That's what they wanted and preferred it to be viewed at, to stop the civic activity of it, because the civic activity is what was feared by the powers that be, because of where that can escalate to, like where is that now? In a sense, so now the Moors' reputation is more civic, just a reputation, not necessarily the temple. But when you hear about Moorish American, you're hearing more of civic activity versus religious activity. But now it's to the point where times have changed. Back in 1913 or 1926 or 27, we were still highly influenced into what they call Jim Crowism. So the way things were viewed and the way the statutes and the laws were a lot different. Moors didn't have the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech back then like they do now. So any activity back then will be neutralized very quickly, and that also gives Prophet Noble Drew Ali credit, because he was able to expound this type of activity and movement during the heart of the Jim Crowism. And regardless of how it was written or how it was filed, the reputation of the Moorish Americans in Chicago, where the headquarters was at, was known more as a civic organization. Regardless of what was filed, that's what they were doing. And it was no secret. It was all in the headlines, and you still can go back and read them. The Chicago Tribune was a popular newspaper, which was written by the local press of the city of Chicago. At that, they still had the newspaper, but meaning at that day and time, if you want to know what the Moors were into, you go back and read the newspapers from them, not from us. But you had the Chicago Defender, that was a local newspaper, and you had the Chicago Tribune. And to top that, you had the FBI files, which would clearly explain and tell you what the activity of the Moorish Americans was. So it doesn't matter what was filed, they'll tell you exactly how they looked at this and what the work that was being done. That's one way to address that. The other way is Drew Ali did not necessarily enforce the treaty at all. Why? Because the treaty was an acknowledgement between the Kingdom of Morocco and the United States of America. Although the Moroccan Empire did have influence in the treaty because the seat of the Moroccan Empire was in Morocco. However, he did not need to use the treaty to do the work that he did with the Moorish temple. And throughout the literature, he doesn't even mention the treaty. Doesn't mean it can't be used, doesn't mean that he didn't refer to it at times, but that's a maritime document. It did not necessarily have to be invoked or enforced on the land of North American territory. Why? Because the Constitution of the United States, which he mentioned at least last time I think I read it was 17 times in a divine warning, and I could be off, but he mentioned the Constitution at least 17 times in a divine warning. He never mentioned the treaty once. And the reason why is because the Constitution is referred to as the supreme law of the land. Absolutely. The treaty only pertains to a discrepancy between a citizen of another constitutional nation or state and a Moorish American. If a controversy arises between two members on North American soil, then the Constitution, by law and by agreement, is supreme in that matter. So why would you refer to a subordinate document as the law when the Constitution is referred to as the supreme law? So he referred directly to the supreme law and not a subordinate law. So it's important that Moorish Americans, because our nationality, our free national name is Moorish American. So anybody, controversy between Americans, the Constitution becomes the default argument or the default body of law to neutralize any issues between the two parties. Islam, Brother Mark.
You just said something right there that I need a little clarity on something. Considering, let's say, I know we say the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, right? But then we have Supreme Court decisions on certain things, correct?
Yes.
So then we have in 1939 when there was a shift in certain things from law to policy, common law to policy, right? And what you just mentioned, I mean, you tapped on that, and I'm trying to get some more substance out of it.
Are you speaking? Can I help you? Are we speaking in reference to like why they didn't honor the decision?
Yeah.
Or why they still don't honor the Supreme Court decision? Is that what you're making reference to?
Yeah.
All right. And I know you know it, but I'm just gonna remind you of this.
Okay. It's on.
I forgot what was the so-called one of the tribal Indian leaders. made a reference, a statement one time, and said that the United States never honored any treaty that they went into agreement with. And because of that, they said they was drawn out. They wanted out. All right. That's one reference. Jefferson also said that you now have a republic if you choose to keep it.
Keep it.
Did they keep it? No.
No.
The United States of America was established and set up to perfection. However, it was premature within the declaration of it. It was never practiced or upheld to the standards of its merits from day one.
No.
So in lieu of that statement, the Supreme Court decisions is just used as toilet paper. It's discretionary on whether they honor anything that was established or written according to Article 6 of the Constitution, like we went over last week. They don't, I mean, look at office now. It's not personal, where we look at it like they don't honor us or they don't accept what we say when we go to court. It's bigger. It's not personal to Moorish Americans. They don't honor nothing for themselves. You know, so it's not personal like they're discriminating against Moors. That's not what the case is. They don't honor each other. You know, they declare war without a declaration of war, which is like supreme violation of the Constitution.
It's not.
You know, so you gotta know what's going on to really understand it's not personal, and it's discretionary whenever you make a constitutional argument on whether it's going to be upheld or not. Just like we went over the 14th Amendment last week and we showed proof, we went over the fact that it's unconstitutional. It was declared unconstitutional. It was put into effect unconstitutionally. It was an illegal amendment from day one, right? We know that. And we backed up the articles that they even said it was unconstitutional. And then it was also repealed. So it's no secret. However, Supreme Court acknowledges that it was unconstitutional, but they still go by the 14th Amendment each and every day. So you can't expect any logic behind that. There's no way to explain, you know, there's no one answer to describe it. You're dealing with criminals that don't acknowledge their own laws. So that's, you're not just pointing out a group of people, because it's not dealing with a nation, an ethnic group, or a nationality that we're talking about. The citizens at large is unconstitutional, like Drew Ali teaches. Like, United States of America never really got off the ground when you really understand it. That's why he says that the United States will eventually be one of the most prosperous governments of the world. He said, but if the above principles are not carried out by my people and the citizens, the worst is yet to come. So he's letting you know that it never really got off the ground. The preamble, the Constitution, all that great stuff we read really never was enforced from day one. Slavery itself was unconstitutional. Therefore, it never should, even Abraham Lincoln acknowledged and recognized that. And that was his testimony and why he did what he did. That's why he so-called emancipated the slaves. Because he said that the government wasn't founded on those principles. Slavery is unconstitutional. You can't have a constitution, a free republic, but have slaves. That in itself is a contradiction. Drew Ali backed up the same statement. I mean, do you have a better understanding of that? So we have to be wise and know that even though the law says one thing, that we can't expect a favorable reply all the time when we repeat that law. So we have to deal with the art of war. Islam, the Quran says, do what is right by reason. You You know, so again, the Second Amendment says we have a right to carry, but is that wise? Should we just go and do that because the Second Amendment said we can? Again, got to do which is right by reason. And that's with anything, which is the right to carry or the right to travel. You got to use your own intellect. Islam. Islam.
Just a couple of
I'll
points.
be right with
that-
you. No, go ahead.
One, the writing, Nobuna's writings also indicate, help me bring my people back into the constitutional code of government,
Mm-hmm.
and also help me enforce the Constitution. So those are phrases that I've come across
Mm-hmm.
in the studies as well. So again, that's the civic aspect of our responsibilities, as Moorish Americans, is
Brother Mark.
to be knowledgeable and to help enforce the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
One point. The other point is, I just the brother he was mentioning something about the Constitution. I don't remember the Treaty of Peace and Friendship or the Treaty of Grenada or any of those treaties being mentioned by name
Mm-hmm.
in any of the writings from the as far as even referencing within the Constitution, I think somewhere in Article 6, Article 6 of the Constitution, it says, all treaties entered into, so the Constitution is supreme law of the land, but it also acknowledges all treaties entered into are to be the supreme law of the land. So that is a connection for the treaties, I guess is my understanding, but the Treaty of Peace and Friendship is a treaty of admiralty and commerce, and therefore it does deal with the issues of, commerce, whereas the Constitution deals with the issues of the land. So I'm clear on that. The other question that I had was two different things. One is with regard to Noble Ali. I think the brother was saying, why wasn't the treaty enforced? It was never mentioned in the writings of the majority, but also the document, if you will, or mandate, the land mandate, which was given, it was stated it was given to Major Ali for North America. So that mandate might be what he's talking about as his moving authority for saying that you are part and parcel of the said government. You understand what I'm saying? So he mentioned treaty, but I don't remember any authority being discussed in writing, except for there was supposed to have been a mandate given at the Pan-African Conference or something like that in Cuba, supposedly. So that's the one thing. It's one other thought that I actually had.
That was the Pan American Conference.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would have been the authority by which the Prophet had created the civics organization, to let the people know that they're not Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian, let you know that, these misnomers, these labels, this is not you. You are actually the descendants of Moroccans here in America. So therefore teaching nationality, teaching that, who you really are is what that civics organization was about in the beginning. Am I correct?
Yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
I just want to clear up one thing. We derived our power and authority from the great Quran of Muhammad. So Drew Ali didn't receive a tangible document, although he did receive documentation and acknowledgement. But he clearly stipulated that our authority does not come from them. So they could not grant authority for him or us to operate here. That would be in violation of what the movement even stands for. It's in our documents and is on our charter that we can go over later. But even on the back of your authority, or just stipulated our authority, which you have in your hand now, which is back on the pamphlet referred to as the 101s. And that's what was filed for the public record. So you know how when Moore said, well, we reserved our rights and they accepted it? We put our reservation of rights so that we know what that represents, 1-1207 and 1-103. We understand all of that, right? But just showing you the concept that this public document was filed for record in Cook County, Illinois, and was made a party of a much larger document.
Exactly.
And that was our authority, and he stood on that. This is why we teach Moors how to stand on the concept of your proclamation, Free National Name and Religion Proclamation. And that's why we take it to the county and file it, because of what it represents. It doesn't mean that your authority comes from you filing this document here, or them stamping your document, or giving you a book and page number, but it's just an acknowledgement of something that took place according to the common law. So he filed it for record because it's protocol.
That's right.
And that's what he stipulated in his writing. He said an affidavit has been filed to that effect, meaning that I follow the procedure
That's right.
of the law,
That's right.
of what these things represent. But within the affidavit itself, it is what you call a reservation of right.
That's right.
He explains where authority really comes from.
That's right.
So he's not saying that my authority comes from you, or if you don't sign this document, then we are not Moors, or we can't set up and do this, that, and the third. He's not saying that. He said, I'm going to do what you're required to do according to the law and organizations. And then you also have to go into Hurd's revised statutes. One of the reasons why Drew Ali even filed or set up in Chicago is because Chicago is a city of the state referred to as Illinois. And Illinois is one of your Mecca states of the Northgate civilization. So there's significance behind that and legal ramifications behind Illinois as well. Even understanding what Lincoln did, you got to understand Illinois. So Hurd's revised statute was a statute of Illinois. So when you hear the term Hurd's revised statute, then you understand that this was statutes of the state of Illinois that describe certain rules and regulations and laws of how organizations, corporations, and governments and churches and etc. are to be dealt with, which the Hurd's revised statutes differed from the other statutes throughout the United States very differently. So it gave the protections and the acknowledgement and the freedom to set up this type of government within a government. And it was recognized as such in Illinois, and still is. Where it wouldn't have had the Moorish Science Temple wouldn't have been able to legally be filed like he did it in any other state because of the state statutes. So people don't understand why he moved around, why he did certain things. It's all legal and lawful, explained, justified. I want to read this proclamation, plea to the nation, March 1st, 1929, in lieu of what we're talking about. It says, our divine and national movement stands for specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors and members, and who else? And the American citizens. to help me in my great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. I have suffered much severely in the past through a misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. He said, "It's the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of divine and national movement." Now, just understand something. He said he brought us something that we can't tear up. It'll tear us up, right? And it's a divine movement. We got to understand the wording, what we're repeating, what we're saying, and we have to really, for beginners, believe in this, because belief is just the first step. But you got to first believe that what you're dealing with is right and exact and truth and fact. And this is why he further explained this. Listen to what he's saying. It is the great God, upon himself. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this movement. Marcus Garvey repeated the same thing. He spoke about nationality principles and said it is the guidepost of the nation. But however, great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of the Moors divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America. That's why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially in my great work I am doing to help this national government. Talking about the nation. For without a free national name, without a descent flag of your forefathers, there's not a national divine title of the government in which we live. Back to the statement earlier I made, they place their trust upon names and issues formed by their forefathers. So government is based on trust, is rooted in trust, and is descended based off the forefathers of the nation. The only reason why that's not coming to us is because of colonization. We have accepted coloners or colonizers setting the destiny of a government. So we accepted the names and the principles of colonizers. So the national ancient principles is not really common knowledge to us because we accepted the colonizers' way of life. We call the language English, which represents English colonizers. We accept an English thought pattern. We accept English teachings.
That's right.
Schooling, etc., behavior, clothing, apparel, food, whatever, you name it. We accept that and we refer to it as English. That's not the forefathers of this nation, and it's not the forefathers of the Moorish Americans. However, it's the condition, we understand that. But just going back, if you want to restore your government, you have to predate English. And even this national government, not speaking domestically either. The United States of America has to predate English in order to be restored back to its standard. So just reiterating the fact that it's the great God Allah alone. So that complements the statement of we derive our power and authority from the great Quran of Muhammad. Now, again, Muhammad does not mean necessarily Prophet Muhammad. So you got to understand what Muhammad really represents. Muhammad represents the universe, the ethos, the cosmetic ethos. So it's not Muhammad as the man or the prophet or Muhammad the first, Muhammad the second, or Muhammad the conqueror. So when you look at the circle of life, that is Muhammad. That's referred in other schools of thought as Muhammad. So the successorship of Prophet Muhammad is being represented as the successorship of the etheric planes. Noble Drew Ali was Prophet Muhammad. Jesus was Prophet Muhammad. Because of what they represent, not the man, not the character, and not what you've been told. So when you see writing like that, they're not making reference to a religion. As somebody would read that and say, oh, he's talking about they derive their power and authority from some religious stuff. No, that's not what that is. However, on a lower level, that's how you would perceive it. On a higher level, they don't perceive that way. No different from the general statement, these lessons are for all those who love Jesus. From a lower level, you will laugh at that. From a higher level in law, they know exactly what that means. Islam, Brother North, start first and then Sister Mel. Islam. And pardon me, Flying Go, I meant to get to you before too. Islam, just assume your position after she speaks. All due respect, he got to go first. Sister Jamila.
Islam, as I rise and give praises to Father God Allah, honors to Noble Drew Ali, honors to everyone here, honors
Islam.
to all that pertains to Islam.
Islam.
I have some questions from the chat room.
Yes.
Islam. Okay, Brother Mornell Bay is asking. if
Islam to you, Mornell Bay.
Islam, Brother Monel.
Okay, he has actually two questions. The first one is, should we bring a copy from the Library of Congress showing that the 14th Amendment wasn't ratified to courts? And the second question is about Article 6.
I'm going to hear the question for. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The first question. Should we bring a copy from the Library of Congress showing that the 14th Amendment was never ratified to court? That's the first question.
Yes, and what was the second one?
Okay. The second question. Article 6 of the United States Constitution establishes the laws and treaties of the United States made in accordance with the supreme law of the land. Forbids their religious acts as a requirement for no and government. United States under the Constitution. Responsible for that. Statement.
Islam. I'm going to expound on the question. Right here, sir. Islam. You can bring it to court, but it's not necessary to bring that type of documentation to court. Because, and here's my thing with it, you should always have documentation for information purposes, just in case you're questioned on it. However, you want to take the position of being able to explain the document itself. Once they know that you know what you're talking about, then you don't have to rely off the documentation. But if they feel like that you're just repeating something, or if you can have proof of something in writing, but if you can't explain that, then they still not going to acknowledge it. So the thing is just becoming one with the document, understanding why the 14th Amendment is. I will take the position of just showing that it's unconstitutional, not only because it was ratified incorrectly by the majority of the states, because that's to say, okay, what if every representative did sign off on that? Would it have been legal then? No. So I would not even repeat that as my argument on why it's not legal. The spirit of the 14th Amendment is unconstitutional. Therefore, it shouldn't even got one vote. And when they know that you are telling the truth or that you understand it, then they don't tend to try to push that on you or force you to prove it at that point.
No.
But just because you show a document, remember, man knows not by being told. So just because you got a document that says something is true, don't mean that you're one with that. And they're not going to always acknowledge something that you got in your briefcase or in your folder because you said that the Moors were this, or you said Drew Ali did this, or you're even what we're speaking about. This is why we like teaching this way, because we teach our members to become one with this, to become one with the writing, the proclamations, the affidavits. Know what you're talking about. Don't repeat it. Don't just memorize something, but be able to stand on it and prove it. So we want to be able to stand, like, for example, just stand on your square and explain yourself. You don't need a whole bunch of books and documents to explain who you are. Should you have it as backup? Yeah, if you're going to be dealing with an issue like that, yes. But more so, just know what you're talking about. Islam? Brother Fine, go.
Islam, I found the chapter that you was asking about fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
It's chapter number 28, Holy Instructions from the Prophet, Master and Servant. Ayat 2. Chapter 28, Ayat 2. The honor of a servant is his fidelity. The honor of a servant is his fidelity. His highest virtues are submission and obedience.
Mm-hmm.
So I showed this to Brother Haru. Haru was saying that basically when it says his highest virtues are submission and obedience, that's honor.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to bring that to
Islam. So let's go back to that for a second. Because when the brother North Star asked how we demonstrate the preamble, right? So as a protocol or a ritual, and out of respect and out of honor, temple etiquette is we rise and we give praise to Allah, right? Which, whatever your perception of Allah is. And we do that because Allah is the only one that's worthy of praise. So we don't praise man. We don't praise anything in the flesh. We praise God. We praise Allah, right? And then next, we give honor to the Prophet. Just like we talked about earlier, what does honor represent? Being honorable or whatever. So we acknowledge Noble Drew Ali as an honorable individual. And because he's the founder, we give honor to him for many different reasons. But first of all, out of respect that this is his house and he has helped us get back on track. So we give honor to him for that. So that's just a quick skit that we're doing, but just acknowledging why we give praise to Allah, honor to the Prophet. And then whatever else you want to say after that, but it should be within rank or within protocol. Allah to the Prophet. If you're going to get into anything outside of that, that's fine, but you put those, you high esteem those. So we're submitting to that understanding and to that power of Allah and the Prophet. And we're also saying that we are in line with that and acknowledging that within ourselves. Islam. Islam, thank you for that. Islam.
Islam. It's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fidelity is a noun. Faithfulness in the discharge of duty or of obligation. Also, hearty allegiance to those to whom one is bound in affection or honor. Loyalty, devotion, as the fidelity of an officer. Matrimonial fidelity to a father or friend, strict adherence to truth or fact, reliability, veracity, a measure of the accuracy and freedom from distortion with which a sound reproducing system as radio will receive in transit the input signals. It may be high, medium, or low. And it says came from classical Latin, arrived from classical Latin, fidelitas, fides, meaning faith.
Islam. That's peace, brother North Star.
I had an enlightenment, but I want to just get confirmed. Muhammad, universal concept. I appreciate that. So in the English, taking the English language, they would call it Buddha consciousness or Christ consciousness. This is Muhammad consciousness, but it's parallel. Right?
Islam.
That was the enlightenment. That was like, because I thought we were talking about the conqueror.
Yeah, the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah. And so also the clarity of the preamble of, honoring the greater consciousness, Allah, Buddha, Christ, whatever.
Yes.
But honoring the greater consciousness first.
Absolutely.
And then the individual who brought the consciousness to your attention.
Yes, absolutely.
I got eyes. I honor Allah. I honor Noble Drew Ali. I hold the consciousness through Islam.
Islam, honor to you as well, brother. Islam.
I just wanted to give honors again, praise to Allah, honors His Prophet, to say that on our nationality card, we refer to Noble Drew Ali as a universal prophet. Because all prophets, they come with different messages, but they're universal because the spirit, right? Just like the Creator, we call by many names. So on our nationality card, it says we honor all true and divine prophets, Muhammad, Buddha, Confucius, etc. And that's why, even though Prophet Noble Drew Ali is a prophet in his own right, he's given honor to other prophets because they're all one.
Islam. And the spirit of Allah, and again, that's why the nationality card stipulates that, because it's a legal statement and a metaphysical statement all in one. So we honor all true and divine prophets, because a divine the word divine indicates God consciousness, right? So soon as we make reference to a divine prophet, we're already past the consciousness of man. We already surpassed that, so we say we honor our mothers and our fathers, that their days belong upon the earth, right? So when we're supposed to, not saying that we all do, because we're striving. But when we say we honor these things, then what we're saying is we're going to hold ourselves accountable to that consciousness. So that obliges us now to live according to the consciousness or that vibration that we speak about.
The frequency.
Exactly. So we say, let the documents precede you. So yeah, we got affidavits and identification that represents a higher level, this past man himself. So you can't identify, we can't necessarily identify with the ID, because the ID is divine. It represents a divine consciousness that can't be seen with physical eyes. However, we're saying that we're going to hold ourselves accountable to that vibration. So technically, we're saying we're striving for perfection. I'm striving to become my true self. However, no one's going to say, okay, well, you're not there, so I'm going to charge you with not being God. However, if our actions are contrary to right law, then we can be penalized. And we got to understand that we're striving, and naught is going to strive together, but our good deeds have to override our bad deeds. And that's how we're judged, regardless if it's by man or by Allah. We're judged according to the decisions, the choice, which is the will that we make in this human life. Islam? So again, this back of the questionnaire, which is referred to as our authority, it says, for that purpose, the following persons was appointed sheikhs, according to the rules and usages of such Moorish Science Temple of America, and listed the individuals. Then it says the Moorish Science Temple of America is deriving its power and authority from the great Quran of Muhammad. And that's another phraseology that you want to understand. The great Quran is different from the Quran of Mecca. The great Quran, plural, is the universal consciousness of God. That's why it's referred to as the great Quran. It's not making reference to the book, like I said last week. It's not making reference to the Quran, the book. And the Quran is different from the Quran, as we explained last week as well. So the great Quran of Muhammad, to propagate the faith and extend the learning and truth of the great prophet of Ali in America. So just giving you a reading of the authority itself and what is filed on our behalf. And then when we proclaim our nationality and we get further documentation, affidavits, and we sign them, and then we file them for the public records, it's in lieu or it's an amendment to this same proclamation that was already proclaimed in 1928. So your status, name, and your actions are being amended now to a higher proclamation that was already established in the physical and metaphysically. So sounds good, sounds deep, but it's not a contradiction, but it's a loop to that. We're now held accountable to that. So now, if your actions are contrary, you technically can be charged with perjury. So if you out doing this and acting a fool and acting other or acting unconstitutional, then you're violating divine laws and constitutional laws. And now you can be held accountable. So we got to look at that from that perspective, because it's a double-edged sword. Islam, brother Bendera.
First, I rise and give all praises to Allah, honor to Noble Drew Ali, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, and to all that pertains to Islam. My question is first, it's like a short two-part question. You said the Great Quran is the universal what of Allah?
Consciousness of Allah.
Okay, and that when you say Great Quran, how is that one spelled? Quran spelled that you're using?
Quran.
Quran. How is it?
It's Koran.
Thank you.
Islam. And again, back to how Brother Omari opened up, well, opening up according to the Circle 7. So this symbol is on the Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, right? This is the symbol that was chosen to go on the front cover of what we call the Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, right?
Yes.
So this symbol represents many things, but this symbol also represents the great Quran of Muhammad. The symbol and what it represents. And again, we can go deep into different symbolisms and thoughts, but that's not the time for this. But as a brief, this represents the great Quran of Muhammad. So when other people from other schools of thought and higher consciousness people see this symbol, they already know what it represents. It's past what people think as religion. You know, we limit this to religious symbols. Even the hand press of unity and different things, we debase it to minimize a consciousness that we're familiar with. But and I always say this, it's unfortunate because man invokes symbols. However, the man is supposed to be in higher frequency than the symbol itself. Man debased himself from the integrity of the symbols. So nowadays, the symbols have a higher integrity than man himself. So man want to be quick to symbolize things and have all these symbols, especially people like Masons. You know, they want to put the rings and chains on, and when they cars, they put all these symbols because people want to be recognized and represented for symbols because of what the symbols mean, but they don't want to put the substance in the symbol. And when you get the higher up you go into fraternal schools of thoughts, you will see that those people minimize their uses of symbols. And you'll get less respect the more symbols you use in higher schools of thought by those who know. Because then they say people hide behind symbols. That's why they need symbols to speak and explain who they are, because they can't do it themselves. Yes, absolutely. So just keep that in mind. Islam, Sister Jamila. I apologize, but part 2 of Mornell's question I never answered. Can you repeat that question to me again, please?
I think it's more of a statement.
All right. Can you just confirm that?
Okay. I'll repeat this. It says Article 6 of the United States Constitution establishes the laws and treaties of the United States made in accordance with it as the supreme law of the land, forbids a religious test. It says as a requirement for holding governmental positions, and holds the United States under the Constitution responsible for all debts. It was a statement.
All right, Islam. Yes, one correction to that. It doesn't establish the law. It recognizes the law. Article 6 acknowledges the law. It doesn't establish the law. Just remember that. The Constitution of the United States of America, again, 1787, represents the adoption or compilation of laws that already existed. Right? What she's saying. So it doesn't establish it. The Constitution is not the origin in 1787. Which I know he knows that, but I'm just making sure everyone is clear on that understanding. The Constitution is just there as a reference to what already existed, has to remain valid, is what Article 6 interprets to be. It stipulates that the engagements, the debts that was entered in before the adoption of the Constitution has to remain valid against the United States as under the Confederation.
That's right.
Meaning that whatever was the law prior to this has to remain valid or in force. And any laws and treaties that have been made or shall be made past this date has to remain valid. Is the purpose of Article 6. Is to bind everything together and make them one. Is how that's to be studied, have to be argued, etc. You want to make reference to anything being the beginning. especially a document that is in past tense. Yes.
That represents the Articles of Confederation, the Articles of Association, the Northwest Ordinance.
Mhm.
That's all those other documents that predated the Constitution.
Yes.
That's
Yes. And very important. And I hear you on that, which is a true statement. But as a Moorish master, the first thing that you enter into Article 6 is this. So Article 6 acknowledges that this is the supreme law of the land as well. If you miss key ingredient, you're going to denationalize yourself. Because Article 6 is what acknowledges customary law or customs,
That's right.
also known as common law. When you say common law, you have to explain, well, what is the law or the reference of law you make in reference to? So common law can mean anything. The English law of Parliament could be referred to as common law. So you can't just say common law and just leave it alone. So Article 6 says, okay, whatever law you bring in from the past is now United States law. So the question is, what law are you bringing from the past? If you don't stipulate that, then you're not bringing Moore's law to the table. Or you could just be making reference to modern day law. Your law predates 1700s.
Right.
If I heard correctly in the beginning of the meeting, and I heard two different statements. The question was asked, how old is our flag? But that's the key. It's over 50,000. It's not 50,000 years old. You can't even count it. It's so old. But as a reference, he said it was over 50,000 because that's what's traceable. But no one can give an exact date because no one knows that record. It's too old. But the importance is this. The supreme thought about that is this. If that flag is over 50,000 years old, that flag represents people. It represents a nation and represents rules and laws.
That's right.
It don't represent just the flag itself. The flag only represents the people.
That's right.
The people came before the flag. So if the flag is over 50,000 years old, then the people are over 50,000 years old. That means that you not saying that we're able to do this physically, but the furthest you can go back into law has to be made a party to Article 6.
That's right.
When you say Moorish law, then you going back over 50,000 years old, as far back as you can trace. And that's what you have to enter into record, far as not just in paper wise, but in argument wise, and in thought, in concept, far as the way we dress, right? This is referred to as customary dress code. So this dress code predates 1700s. It predates the 1900s. It predates Ralph Lauren. Just throwing that out there. It predates Tommy Hilfiger. You understand what I'm saying? So not that I'm hiding behind the clothing, but my whole thought pattern should be rooted within the vibration and the time era of what the guard represents.
Absolutely.
Because this is just a physical garb, but my mental garb should be expressing the same thought. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what you present to them as a affidavit of fact.
Right.
Not the document itself.
No.
You can present a document and they be looking at it like, okay, well, that's brilliant. But I'm looking at you with a hoodie on and a fez.
Right.
I'm just, not knocking nobody, but just throwing that out there that how are they going to take you seriously with an affidavit of fact? And you got a mixture of modern day English thought pattern mixed with affidavits of the past. So again, doesn't mean that you're a slave. It just means that you make it harder to explain who you say you are. If you want somebody to really take you seriously, you have to take your custom seriously, is what that means. Yes, sir.
So, Thomas Jefferson got his concept from the Iroquois Nation. How does that fall in the timeline? Basically, we talk about Article 6 recognizing constitutions or letters of the law predating, their.
Thomas Jefferson, not to cut you off, took his oath sworn into government using the Great Quran.
That's right.
Mhm.
And he used the same argument that I'm teaching right now. He binded to Article 6 because he knew it was customary law.
That's right.
That he's acknowledging that that's his forefathers too.
Right.
So it's a fair game.
Mhm.
He's not the only one that did that.
No.
But my point is, he was able to do that based off what I'm teaching. That is ancient, it's customary, and it's rooted within United States law. No one can challenge the fact that Moorish law or Moorish customary law, and I'm gonna tell you the other terminology that's recognized in history is the Mosaic codes. Moorish law is referred to in a large group of thought as the Mosaic codes.
Mhm.
So no one modern day can challenge the fact that the United States is not rooted within the Mosaic codes. Even Obama in his last administration acknowledged that.
Yes, exactly.
No different from Jefferson or anybody else did.
National.
So it shows that they know something that we don't. And that's what we're studying. That's what Drew Ali trying to explain to us too. So now we can, if they can use the Quran to enter into the public trust, and then the record says they placed their trust upon names and issues formed by their forefathers, whose forefathers really formed this government? I know you know the answer. I'm just throwing that out because that's the supreme thought. That answers your question. Exactly. The Mosaic codes predates this government. It predates the Iroquois, is what I'm saying. Answers your question. Iroquois just means a plethora of nations. That's all that means. It's not specific as to what nation or what tribe or what law. So this flag represents the Iroquois. Because of what Iroquois mean.
That's right.
We keep thinking Iroquois means Indian.
Right.
And Iroquois don't mean Indian.
Oh.
And us not charging anybody in this room, but the consciousness will think Iroquois and think that era of time of Indians. When it has nothing to do with that.
Excuse me, Banshee. There is a thought out there that Thomas Jefferson went to the Six Nations in upstate New York and looked at their constitution and borrowed stuff from their constitution.
That's how this constitution. That is what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm getting clarity. But so it's the same upstate New York, Six Nations.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It means a plethora of nations.
Yes.
Islam,
the Mosaic law, bringing people together under an understanding of how to civilly live amongst each other.
Yes, absolutely.
Law, it's called the law of the great peace.
Absolutely. Great binding law of peace.
Law of peace, right?
So that's what they refer to as the Iroquois Constitution.
Yeah.
its nickname is the Great Law of Peace.
Peace, yes, exactly. Yeah.
Islam means what?
Peace, yes.
So it's the same thing. It's the law of Islam.
Islam.
So peace didn't start with, quote unquote, a group of Indians. Peace was always known to man. It's the beginning and it's the end. So no group of people can originate or say that they started peace. This is what makes all constitutions actually one. So the Iroquois Constitution, just agreeing with that thought pattern for a second, or the United States of America's Constitution, is one constitution. And those who support that idea and those principles are all one family in thought and consciousness, which makes it an international affair. Regardless of what their nationality is, what they look like, or what color they claim to be. It becomes one thought pattern, one God, one religion, one supreme thought. Those that vibrate on that level are past the man-made controversies. So although you said it best, there are thoughts out there that we have to consider and acknowledge. We know what they are, but just to raise the vibration of our members, we teach on high, we go there so that if we stay there, we will automatically fix anything below that.
I appreciate the answer.
Islam.
Islam.
So just combining the laws of the past is how we proclaim or declare our descent. Our descent name, our descent laws, our descent flag is what constitutes Moorish American. So Moorish American is made up of descent, meaning stuff. Descent means came down from. So the past makes Moorish American. Absolutely. That's how we have to think, and that's how we have to argue that. So a lot of us are stuck in trying to mimic the modern day law because we think that the salvation lies within the modern day stuff. It's good to know that, make reference to it, but it is not the origin of us. And we don't want to put too much emphasis on the modern day because you will never state your true claim that way. Islam, that's going to end today's session. We appreciate all the thoughts, the questions, the statements, participation. Islam. We're not going to go into the warnings at this time due to the time. Islam. And we trust that the sisters will demonstrate the collections, the donations after I close. Just want to close out with prayer. Family that prays together stays together. Islam. We all rise and face the east.
Square.
Islam. And before we say the closing prayers call, I just want to also send our thoughts and our prayers, which we already did, but just reiterating. Glad to see Sister Claudia Hillel back in good health.
Yeah.
Because that's what praying does.
Takbir.
Islam. Now let's pray for each other. Islam. I'll repeat after Sheikh Isnika.
May Allah
May Allah
find our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine creative principles. This we ask in our holy name, in the seven Elohim, Islam.
I'd like to make an announcement in lieu of Sister Monique. she's back there trying to get the children in together.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do the collections, and there'll be an additional towards the food, the pizza,
Islam.
and that's that.
And again, thank you for reminding me. But also, Sister Monique is back in good health. Islam. It was a different type of sickness, but don't want to depreciate that. Islam. We encourage good health here. Islam. Meeting is now closed. Islam.
Welcome back,
Flying
sister.
go. Oh, you got it. Chica Sneaker.